Dímelo mi mundo, and welcome to Boss It Up Media, where we're supporting and empowering entrepreneurs. My name is Ralph Rondon.
I'm Dawn Acevedo.
I'm Sydney Rodriguez.
And Lisa Garcia here. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yes.
Oof.
We're so excited to do another episode, and we're so happy that you all joined us. In prior episodes, you've kind of heard us talk about other organizations that we're a part of, and collectively, what brought us together was a real estate, an organization called Real Estate Boss Empire, which is a woman-led organization that is in support of basically supporting other women in the real estate industry. And whenever we do events, we align them with community and charity events to give back to our communities.
We love to give back.
Something that we all have a passion for. It's something that we have big hearts to give back, and it's an organization that allows us to do that. So we joined forces and we came together at Boss It Up Media, but that's where we originated from. So you've heard us talk prior about that. On this episode, we're bringing back a former guest that joined us, Joe Crease, and you'll see some branding in the studio. You'll see what Lisa is wearing and her Rebbe hat, and you're going to see Joe Crease soon, so you'll see some branding for the Real Estate Boss Empire. And that's because we're so excited that Joe Crease has brought her talents and financial knowledge to Real Estate Boss Empire and joined our board as our incoming treasurer. So we're super excited that not only has she shared all of her knowledge with us, but now she's going to collaborate with us and kind of lead the way for our organization financially. And we're super thankful and super excited for that, right, guys? I mean,
super excited.
100%.
oh my goodness, I can't even express the planning that she's already. I mean, she is my spirit animal, I want to say, in a way. You know, as soon as I saw her kind of put notes together from a meeting, I was like, oh, this is the organization. This is the financial knowledge that we have been missing.
And that is so funny because of the fact that I'm the worst when it comes to things like that.
We all have our strengths.
Yes,
we all have our
that's
strengths.
definitely not mine. And I know that drives probably Dawn crazy. So when Joe came around, I was like, thank you. I was like, oh my God, Dawn's going to be so happy with you.
And this is what Boss It Up Media is about. You know, it's about us coming together, whether it's meeting while we're networking or serving on other organizations, and kind of joining forces and bossing it up together. You don't have to be alone to boss it up. I mean, you guys help me boss it up every day.
That's a great point because, you know, a lot of people think, oh, I'm a boss because I'm alone, because I do it alone, because I got this by myself. But it's not true. I'm like, you're a better boss when you have partners and support behind you. Absolutely. Whether it be your partners or your family, they're your support as well, and they're just as bossing it up with you. You know, so everyone around you is definitely helping you out.
The collaboration between men and women is very important too.
Yes. Very. Yes.
So that brings me to a good point, because although Real Estate Boss Empire is a women-led organization, we could not do it with our fellows, without our fellows. I mean, we do have a boss, a committee of men that are bosses in their own individual companies, and they bring so much value and so much talent to Real Estate Boss Empire. That's why we actually brand it as Real Estate Boss Empire.
Exactly. I don't know what we would do without them.
Seriously.
Yeah,
and I think it's good because I think us working together and collaboratively showing the world how men and women work together and work well. I don't get me wrong. I like the women empowerment group. That's how I met you guys. But I think when you're working together and showing the world men and women working together, no hating on any level, that's a level up right there.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to be changing that empowerment thing.
Yes, stigma.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
That empowerment thing,
that empowerment thing, because it's always on women.
Yeah.
They're always saying women empowerment. Like, why? We don't say men empowerment. So now we have to kind of get out of that women empowerment because we're already powerful. So it's just about women, powerful women being supported by powerful men, and vice versa. So we have to start trying to get out of that because I've been hearing a lot of, comments about those things. And every time I hear it, I don't like that it's woman empowerment. Like,
I agree. I think that, we get so wrapped up on empowering, saying that we're going to empower other women, but we need to make other women realize that they already have the power
Yes,
within.
exactly.
So I think it's more of encouraging, more of supporting, more of I'm straightening your crown, you're straightening mine,
Exactly.
and not so much like you don't have power, more along the lines of ignite that power within, find that spark and build from there. And I think
Exactly.
it's so important what you said because, for people to see that we can have a women's group, supporting other women, but our men are our strength,
Yes.
I tell my husband all the time, we're a rose. I am the rose. I am the blooming rose on the top, but he is the stem. He is the foundation that, I couldn't do what I do if it wasn't for my husband. Just like in Real Estate Boss Empire, we couldn't do as a group of women what we do without the men that come alongside of us. So the partnership is definitely something that needs to be spoken about.
Always.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When Joe Cree came in, her presence were known. Powerful, powerful woman, and we can't wait to hear more from her. And we'll be back, and we'll introduce her. She'll give us more knowledge, more tips about financial literacy.
So happy
Take
to
that
have
break.
you back.
DJ,
Yes.
play that music.
No te pongas bruto. Latino Mix. Dale play a tu bocina.
Welcome back to Boss It Up Media. I have the pleasure once again to introduce Joe Cris, back from our previous episode that she had so much wealth of knowledge that we had to bring her back on. Once again, she is from Exodus Financials, a wealth strategist and a financial coach. So much information. And Joe Cris, from our previous episode, you had so much knowledge that we had to bring you back on and just get into another topic about business planning for 2024. Life planning and business planning all go simultaneously. How do you go about doing that?
Well, thank you again for having me. Again, really do appreciate it.
Welcome back.
Welcome
Thank you. Good to be here. So I'm officially been Rebified with the Rebified branded gear as the new treasurer. So thank you so much for that. And just recapping again is in the previous episode, we were talking more about vision boards, right? But this, I think, goes hand in hand with also business planning and financial planning, right? So you don't know where you want to go if you don't know how to get there, right? So business planning, I like to call it a roadmap to making sure that you achieve those financial goals, whether they're business goals or personal financial. I think they both correlate with each other immensely, but at the same time, they need to be very specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and with specific timeframes, right? So with that, a lot of people don't realize, or a lot of people don't know that there's 3 people that actually do business plans. The ones that do it now, but they never look at it again in the beginning of the year, in the mid-year, at the end of the year. There's some that don't do it. And then there's those, which is how everyone should segue and understand a business plan is not just a plan that you do it and finish it. It's what we call a live document. So you're constantly taking off, adding, and shifting it depending on how your business is shifting and how your personal goals are shifting as well.
That's awesome. I mean, let's say if you're doing a business plan for a business that you own, do you plan it quarterly? Do you plan it for the entire year? Because it is an evolving document. I feel like you're constantly looking at it, changing it up. So would you make the suggestion, would you plan a quarterly goal or a quarterly plan, or do one for the entire year, or both?
So it depends on the business, but I like to do it quarterly, but then I also like it for it to have specific, within those 12 weeks, what type of activities need to get done, right? So the thing is if you're set to, a perfect example is, if I'm set to say, okay, I'm gonna make $500,000 in my business before December 31st of 2024, right? Now what I have to do is basically do the math, right? And now I'm saying, okay, so 500,000 divided by 52 weeks or divided by 365 days, and how do I quantify that? And in quantifying that, how much activities are money-making activities that I need to do, right? So, and again, it could be a product, it could be a service, it could be, and then you also have to understand what are the activities that are gonna generate income, because the last thing you wanna do is just do activities that are not gonna generate any type of income, right? So that's what the business planning is really there for, to actually quantify whatever that goal is, and then what are the key performance indicators that are going to allow you to be able to reach that goal that you want to.
So you actually have to reverse engineer it. You have to, think about where you're going to start at and how you're going to get there. Great point.
And I've heard quarterly plans, monthly plans, and weekly plans. Which ones are more effective, do you believe?
So it really depends on the person, right? So I think that whatever works for you in regards to measuring it and being able to. So for example, I like to know that I have my financial goals in regards to it's monthly, but I know what type of activities I want to do weekly and daily based off of my planning. And as well in regards to quarterly, how am I either on track to meeting my first quarter, second quarter, or half year, 3 quarters, and then the end of the year. So I think that's the important thing of it being a live document, that you're consistently trying to see what works best for you and how you want to recap it. So it's very similar to in banking. You could look at your bank account every single day, right? But what do they recommend? You need to offset your books on a monthly basis to see that the ins and outs are making sense, right? So that's the same thing as running a business. You want to make sure that all of your performances, all of your activities are activities that are on the right pace to not only scaling out your business, but also are they meeting that financial goal that you also want to make sure you have.
So I have a question. As far as creating these goals and making this outline for your business, would it be best to do it with someone like you, where you're going to be able to put us on track on a better guideline, let's say, as because I think that if I was to do it for myself, I'd probably be all over the place because I'm not as
Organized.
Savvy?
Organized. Okay. I'm not as organized as, let's say, someone like you. So would it be better to work with someone like you in order to make those goals?
So there's that's a great question, because there's a little bit of a correlation where not specifically one person, but you want to develop a team, right? So and we call those centers of influence, right? So those centers of influences. So for legal matters, you want to make sure that you have the right legal counsel based off of your industry. For financial, you want to make sure you have the right CPA, you have the right financial planner, you have the right banker that knows your business as well as personal financial plans. And you want to do, I like to simplify it in regards to just making sure that you have like a 6 plan towards your financial goals. So it could, on the business side, it could be really just on understanding how much you want to make, understanding what activities you want to do, and then how you want to do it, right? And then what resources are out there. So I know we've discussed, there's so many different types of government funding and grants and or contracts that you might qualify for based off of the type of industry that you're in. Or there's specific networking events that you can actually leverage those relationships and be able to build some type of a joint venture relationship in the future. So there's different factors where, yes, I do agree that you need to start with someone to mentor you and coach you on the beginning aspect of that, and then that actually branches out to other professionals within that industry. And then depending on what level that you're in, there's always a process, because not everyone's going to be able in the beginning hire an attorney, hire, like what is the most important, hiring an attorney, hiring an accountant, can I do some of those things up front first? It depends on what year you are in your business, and then how you need to kind of level up or boss it up in regards to just taking that business to the next level.
I think that's a great point too, and I think it's important to tell people to be realistic with your business plan. If it's your first year that you're starting a business that's kicking off, like to say you're going to make, even $250,000 that first year, may not be the most realistic, plan of action.
Yeah.
So start small, I would say, be realistic and achievable, and then step it up a notch, maybe the next month or the following month, and see how you go.
And I was going to say, bringing it back to business planning, most people that are brand new entrepreneurs, they come from the corporate world. So they're used to quarterly planning and quarterly goals. Would you suggest them do monthly and weekly because they're brand new to start?
And it's a combination of both, right? Because I find, especially after 2020, a lot of entrepreneurs they have a full-time job right now, and they're doing their side hustle until it becomes their main hustle, right? Or they're kind of a hybrid. They do a little bit of both. They are a W-2 employee, but they're also an independent contractor in whatever their field is, right? So in that, I do think that there's an importance in the quarterly, because you need to make sure that you know where you're going and how you need to shift within those quarters. But at the same time, making sure that you know that you're building activities and habits that are consistent with you making sure that you're closer to that goal. So if quarterly is not enough, because you don't want to wait 3 months, right, at the end of 3 months and say, oh, well, I wasn't really doing good. Now you're 3 months behind, and now within the next 3 months, you have to catch up with 6 months worth of activities, right? So actually being able to see it on a monthly and even on a daily, you're actually being able to break that down until you're actually able to form those individual habits.
That's great.
And as a new entrepreneur, I mean, no one teaches us how to be an entrepreneur. There's no
handbook.
No.
Yeah.
no, right?
So true.
You know, Joker, I have a question based on what you said and the planning part. Recently, maybe like 3 years in, I've learned, and I'm not perfecting it, but I am perfecting it, but I'm mastering it now, is profit and loss statements. Do you look at that daily, weekly, monthly? Sometimes, looking at it too much, I don't know if that's a negative, but what's your thought on
Absolutely.
P&L statements?
Yeah. So there's so much things in regards to that to understand. Like, people think that, like, for example, I can own a $500,000 house, but am I really worth, or do I really have $500,000 worth of assets if I owe a $400,000 mortgage, right? Or if I have, let's say $100,000 in the bank, right? Is it going to be effective for me to keep it in the bank, or do I have to see what other financial instruments are going to be important for me to offset inflation, offset tax, diversification, or different types of tax deductions, or what different types of financial instruments do I need to put, or platforms do I need to make it where I'm actually making my money make more money for me, instead of it actually dwindling up due to taxes or due to expenses or whatever. So a profit and loss statement is definitely important for you to see what you're making, what your expenses or your overhead are, and then how do you make sure that you're able to manage that money, make more money for you. One of the things I know as a Latina is that as Latinos, we know how to work and make money. But I do feel that we need to be very cognizant and understand how can our money make more money for us. And being able to shift that, because things happen. People have lost, due to bad business decisions, due to bad planning or lack thereof planning.
Definitely. And I think those are such important components of planning for the following year. So even if you're at the end of the year right now and you haven't done any of this, it's never too late to start implementing it. And then when we take this break, we're going to come back and we're going to hear a little bit more about the financial planning and dive a little bit deeper with Joe Crease. But we want to take a break right now, so play the music, Mr. DJ.
No te pongas bruto. Latino Mixx. Dale play a tu bocina.
Welcome back to Boss It Up Media. And we're going to continue our interview with Joe Crease. I love that name. Joe Crease.
Say it's so fun too. My goodness. Joe
My father would be very proud of the way
Leave
you
it to a
pronounce
Dominican
it.
to say it right.
He's rolling that R. Yeah.
Emphasis on it.
So, Joe Crease, what are the steps for business planning that you have?
So whether it's business planning or personal financial planning, I like to discuss 6 steps towards reaching your financial goals. So the first one is...
Get your notepads out, people.
I know,
Take
right?
some notes.
Take notes.
So the first one is definitely that you want to make sure if you need to increase your cash flow, right? So you want to make sure that you earn additional income if you need more income, right? Or you want to make sure that you're managing your expenses accordingly. Second one is you want to make sure that you learn or you are able to excel in regards to managing your debt, which I find is a big pitfall with people, because No one teaches us financial literacy. No one teaches us credit. No one teaches us the credit algorithms
Zero.
yeah, or OPM, leveraging other people's money, which is the financial institutions, et cetera. And the last thing you want to do is be a slave to the lender, right? So you want to make sure that you're using it as a tool or a resource, not as something that's going to hinder you financially. And discuss, do I need to shift? Do I need to consolidate my debt? What are those tools? What are those options? The other thing too is long-term planning, because we don't always want, even if we're in a career or we are entrepreneur, you're not going to work there. So is there an exit strategy that you need to do? Are you going to leave it as a legacy? Who's that legacy? Do you have the right key man insurance? Do you have the right financial instruments to make sure that that money and those funds are going to go into proper instruments like or titling, like trusts, real estate assets, what's hard assets, liquid assets, etc. Proper protection, right? Because there's always things that happen that can cause us to shift or have to shift our businesses, right? So proper protection is making sure you have the right life insurance, you have the right health insurance, you have the right key man insurance, you have the right, you do your due diligence in regards to asset diversification, tax diversification, and then with that, with the proper protection, which is 4, 5 and 6 is an emergency fund, and then start to discuss wealth replacement. So in regards to the emergency fund and the wealth replacement, you have to talk about estate planning solutions, right? What are the tax diversifications? Business planning, I have to tell you guys, is so important in Q4, because the last thing you want to do is the first January, February, March, April, the first quarter, is you feel like you're trying to catch up because you didn't make sure that your finances were in order, and now you have to pay Uncle Sam way more than you thought that you needed to, because you didn't make sure that your books were in order, or how you were properly diversifying your assets to make sure that Uncle Sam taps into less. A big example of that I always say is, let's say you made $100,000 a year and I'm a W-2 employee. I'm already in the second biggest tax bracket of the United States in the state of New York, right? So 25%, I'm not making $100,000 a year, I'm making $75,000 a year. So with that, then I have a mortgage. The mortgage is, let's say, $3,000 a month. That's about $36,000 a year, right? So now half of my $100,000 income is gone, right? Mm-hmm. So what are we doing to make sure that we're properly managing where we're at, where we want to be, and then what resources are out there? And the tax preparer or accountant that you're doing your taxes in the first quarter, if you think that was, you're filing your taxes as tax planning, you have it all wrong. You should be doing tax planning in Q4 or in Q3 of the prior year, so that you know that you're one step ahead of the game.
So important.
Yeah.
So important. I don't think that people realize the implications and the trouble that you could run into if you don't plan accordingly. And paying taxes is not fun, guys. And how real does it get when you hear the numbers, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of us just keep working, earning as much as possible. But then at the end of the day, if you're not doing the profit and loss statements, and you're not watching where your expenses are, where your money is going, and then all of a sudden you have to, pay $10,000, $15,000 to the IRS, and you weren't prepared for that, that's a hit that your business can really be affected from.
So many other factors too. I mean, let's be honest. Like, people don't talk about inflation. I always say, $300 a couple of years back, you used to walk out of a supermarket with a cart full of food. Now it's like you have three bags, right? 3 things.
It's terrible.
And it's done, right? So, that's $300 worth of agricultural commodities, for example. But the main thing is to see, what? Am I making enough for my cost of living to be suffice, or my business to be actually operating? Because the last thing you want to do is, I hear this all the time, I'm in this industry and I made 1.5 million. Yeah, but you actually had about, 1.1 million dollars of, of expenses and overhead. So was it really a profitable business? And what other tools are out there that can actually have you keep more of that money and less, towards.
Definitely.
Do you find
Expenses.
yourself meeting people that are always scared? Because I feel like, not for nothing, I hear financial advisor, I'll feel intimidated. Like, I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't go to a financial advisor because I'm not making a certain amount of money, and that's how people think. That people think I have to have this amount of money in order for me to speak to a financial advisor, because then she's going to be like, what am I doing with you?
Is it the first
If you don't
year?
have any money, what am I doing with you? But it is good to get a head start for those that don't know, because you're going to help them get there.
Right. And it could just be something as simple as, okay, well, let's look at your overall scenarios, because everyone does have specific goals, especially if you have a career, you're an entrepreneur. There's a reason why you're working hard to do things and to have things, right? So with that, I always say, there's no wrong way or right way to do this, and everyone has to start off somewhere. So you might have been, have certain type of principles that were instilled in you that you didn't know that you were very great. But then there's certain things that you might have not had. And if someone would take the time to teach you, you can actually correlate those things and start those healthy habits. So it could be something as simple as budgeting, and then just having a great budgeting. I always say you want to have a healthy marriage with money. You don't have a toxic relationship with money. But it's just sometimes someone has to show you, right? Or you could be, okay, well, now I have assets. Because there's a lot of people I know that they're professionals and they make good money. But it doesn't matter if you're making $500,000, $200,000, or $30,000 a year. If you have bad financial habits, you can also be in a lot of turmoil, where someone that has good financial habits might make a fixed income of $50,000 but has 6 figures saved in the bank because they've actually instilled the right habits. So I always say there's no wrong or right answer. Everyone doesn't want to have bad credit. Everyone doesn't want to not have to count on regards to living off of their credit card, or everyone doesn't want to be in a situation where they have to not work 40 hours, they have to work 80 hours a week or get additional part-time. There's a reason why. So you kind of have to open that up. And it's a difficult conversation to have with yourself, right?
Yeah.
But I also...
Let alone bring it to someone else.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. People need to stop being embarrassed about it, because you can't be embarrassed on something that wasn't shown, or whatever was shown to you wasn't the right thing that needed to be fit for you. So with that, I say do not be embarrassed, whether or not you're at where you're supposed to be or not anywhere. I applaud you because you gave yourself enough grace to say that I need help in regards to do this, and you're the person that's going to help me bridge to get there.
And why financial literacy is so important, because I feel like I grew up in a time that we didn't learn about any. They didn't teach us about
Nothing.
credit. They didn't teach us about any of that stuff. Even just going to college, I doctor, lawyer, business. It's
And
like three things,
We didn't have, until recently, we didn't have like a YouTube channel to say,
Right, none
how
of
do you
that.
make money?
Exactly.
No, at college they give you credit cards. It's
Yeah.
like free money.
Exactly.
They don't
get
they don't
financial
teach.
aid, and that's it. You know, so it's definitely.
Joe Crease, real
important.
quick, touching on what like Lisa said, where some people don't want to talk about this. How old do you have to be to start this?
You could be at any age. It's so crazy because I have a 16-year-old or soon to be 16-year-old, and I try to give him as much financial literacy as I can, and have him have a respect for understanding that money does not grow on trees. Right?
I mean, there are kids
Amen.
right
Yeah.
now starting their own businesses.
Absolutely.
Within YouTube, social media, all that stuff. It's insane how these kids are really making money.
I guess piggybacking off of that, when you have a side hustle that's not on paper, but you're producing money, when do you suggest somebody create the business, or should they start these business planning while they have their side hustle?
So that's a great question, because the thing is that do they want their side hustle to become a main hustle? And then also, what do you need to do to make sure that, is that something that you want to do long term? And how do you want to scale that out, right? So
I think that's a great question, but let's take a break and then we're going to dive into that. Before we go to break, I just want to give a special shout out and a thank you to our sponsor again, Kaplan, DiGiapani, and Faria. Thank you so much. Law firm, you need a real estate attorney, a bank attorney, they're the ones to call.
Yes.
DJ, play that music, take us on a break, and we'll be right back.
See you soon.
No te pongas bruto. Latino Mixx. Dale play a tu bocina.
Dímelo mi mundo, and welcome back to Boss It Up Media.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Oh my goodness. We are having such a great time in the studio today. We're laughing on our breaks. We're dancing. We're enjoying the DJ's music. So we hope you are too. Let's bring it back. Jocrease. We're diving in. We're diving in. Continue, please. Continue with the financial strategy.
Very important.
So if you, just recapping on the question that Ralph had. So if you wanted to make sure that now that side hustle, you want to make it formal, make sure that you have the right business structure, I think is the number one thing, right? Whether it's going to be a sole proprietorship, S Corp, LLC, depending on the type of industry that you're in and what's the best advice. I always say try to get the right counsel in regards to that.
Sponsor plug.
Yes.
Contact Kaplan, DiGiapani, and Faria if you need to form an LLC or any organization.
With that, I think then is knowing how much you're going to, as an owner, seed in that business, right? So if you're already doing a side hustle, you've probably already done it. Definitely, please do not mix your personal with your business. So you want to open up a business account. Huge point in regards to that is your financial institution that you want to make sure that you house your bank accounts. Make sure what's the best fit for you. You want to make sure you have no monthly maintenance fees, no minimum balance requirements. As best as I always say, if it's free, it's for me. It's always a plus, right? So that's a big component, making sure that your books are correct, making sure that you run all of your expenses through that account. That's going to offset a lot of the tax deductions that you have for that side hustle that you want to main hustle. And then with that, with the business planning, you have to then know, okay, well, if I'm only doing 20 hours a week, and that 20 hours a week, I'm making less than $5,000, but I eventually, let's say, make, let's say $10,000 in my full-time job. What are the key activities that I need to make so that this side hustle could become my main hustle? So this is why business planning is so important.
That's why you need a financial coach.
Exactly.
To know when you can exit your job.
Yes. So my advice with that is at least 6 months of your side hustle salary or your side hustle income is saved to offset your main salary, because that 6 months of savings is like your emergency fund that now you have 6 months to start building that side hustle to become your main hustle or your main business, so that then you feel comfortable and you're not going to be put in a predicament where you're kind of you don't have that support from that main income as a W-2 employee or as a career professional in whatever other industry you worked in.
Yeah, like a corporate sales job that you have ramp-up periods. You have to have ramp-up period for your business as well. So 6 months, that's a good amount.
And then also knowing your industry, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, a landscaper, for example, let's say has their highest, industry in the spring and the summer, right? So then, is your business a seasonal business or is it going to be a full-time business, right? And then knowing how much of those sales are going to be in the seasons that you're in. That's another important, conversation to have, and knowing your business and knowing how your businesses, when they have their high seasons and when they have their low seasons. I
know we spoke about this in our talks off camera, but how do you know when your side hustle, quote unquote passion, is not lucrative? How do you know when to exit that side hustle and go into another one that could be profitable?
Good question.
Yeah, really good one. That's painful.
He's trying to say no, but
So when it's costing you more than what you're making in time and financial freedom. Yeah. Because then it's not a side hustle, it's a hobby.
Mm-hmm. And how do you like when you have that feeling that it can go all the way, but on paper it just doesn't make sense?
You have to shift it, and actually, again, the main thing is to actually business planning and seeing where you're at and where you want to be. It could be that, for example, I had one client that does candles, right? And I said, okay, well, how much does it cost you to buy the scents, the actual vase to do the candles, the decorating of it, the wick, all that stuff. And let's say they would say, oh, well, it costs me about, in a month, I spend $5,000. And I'm like, okay, out of that $5,000, how many candles can you make? Oh, I make such and such. Okay, and then out of that 5,000, and you sell each candle for how much? How much are you making on a monthly basis? I'm making 3,000. Then you're at a loss of $2,000. So what do you have to do? Do you have to make it a smaller candle in regards to the product? So you have to kind of, the type of product that you're selling, you have to shift, or do you have to raise the prices? And how do you promote it? And how do you brand it? Is it a branding situation that you need to do to make sure that, why is your product different than someone else's? So there's different aspects to it. It could be marketing, it could be branding, it could be, it could be cost, or it could just be financial principles that you just need to kind of, see what you need to do and how you need to get there.
I think if the passion is there, anything is achievable. So I think if the person feels like this is what I want to do and really has a passion for it, it's going to be the evaluating, the financial preparation and planning that's going to get them to the finish line. If they don't put in the work in that aspect, then they're going to continue to be in the red, I think.
What do you suggest would be the timeline that they should give themselves, and say, you know what, give yourself 6 more months, give yourself another year, and if you make those changes and you see now that you're making profit, then, you keep going. You're doing something right, so.
You said the key word, right? If they do the changes, because I could tell someone 6 months, these are the activities that you need to do, and they don't do it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that in 6. So I always try not to diminish someone's goals or dreams, but I also am very clear with them. Well, you need to put in the work.
Right.
And if you're not putting in the work to make sure you're making changes, then what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again.
So true.
So that's really the main thing. As much as people want to change, are they willing to change, right? Or willing to change those habits,
right.
or attain new habits. So what do they say? It takes 21 days
to create a
habit.
To create a new habit, yep. Yeah. This is such great information. I know that in the conversations that we've had in our last, the prior show that you were on, and in this one, you mentioned, and before we close out, I just want to dive a little bit into it. You mentioned an emergency fund. I learned that lesson many, many years ago of the importance of having an emergency fund, because we don't know what storms are going to roll into our life. So can you just explain that a little bit so that everybody understands what an emergency fund is, how they can prepare for that, so when the storms do roll in, they're ready?
Yeah. So the thing in regards to emergency fund is you want to at least have 3 to 6 months, preferentially 6 months worth of what your income is, right? Because you always have different types of expenses or cost of living. So whatever that is, let's say it's $5,000, you want to make sure that at least $15,000 to $30,000 you have saved up, right? Now that also being said, you want to make sure of that, how much of that is liquid and how much of that is not liquid, right? Because the last thing you want to say is, oh yeah, I have $30,000, but $30,000 is in your hard asset, which is your real estate, and then you actually need to qualify for it, but you can't, liquidate that $30,000 in assets. So how much of that is liquid? How much of that is not liquid? And then what do you also have that that you can liquidate in the event that you can liquidate it, but then also have funds that you're able to access right away. With that, I always say you also want to be very mindful, because the last thing you want to do is have too much liquidity in an account, and that's not going to also be effective for you, which is not going to be effective against inflation or a recession or whatever the case might be. So I think that in the 6 steps towards your financial goals, it's important to have that emergency fund and knowing where that emergency fund is going to be so that it's accessible for you.
Quick question, touching on that topic with the emergency fund, and let's say starting the business or you're in the middle of the business. You had mentioned before other people's money or private funding, right? At what point, like whether you're starting or you're in it, do you use, let's say you have all your savings, do you throw all your savings into this idea in business? Do you go to a traditional bank? Do you find a private investor that sometimes you have to give up some of your ownership rights? But what do you think is the best strategy? Do you hold on to your cash and use other people's money to start all this stuff, or?
I think it's a case by case. There's so many
it's very
different.
general,
There's
depending
so
on the
many.
business
Yes,
too.
I think it's. I always say with finances, there's not a one size fits all, right? So that's why the financial planning is so important. Just the same way as a credit score has specific things that are achievable for you to have the credit algorithm that you have, whether or not you're, a high 800, 700, 600, et cetera. That they don't teach us because people don't teach us certain, the system doesn't teach us certain things. You have to kind of figure it out or learn it through someone. The same thing is understanding what's out there. So there's people that become their own bank, and that's through an index universal life insurance policy where, it has the upside of the market without the downside of the market. So you don't lose money, but at the same time, you can make up to a certain percent. And when you needed it, you could borrow against it. It's tax, free. It ends up being inherited tax free. And then you can use it for business ventures in putting your money in that financial instrument first. Then there's different ways where, then at some point, if you want to use credit because you need to, then you're using it as an instrument, not because you need it, but because you're leveraging it. That's the important thing. A lot of people get stuck in using other people's money or credit where they're using it, but then they're not going to be able to recover if something happens, right? So that's why the emergency fund is really important.
So a credit card is not an emergency fund.
Definitely not. It's a tool,
It's a tool.
but I don't think that, I personally do not believe that it is an emergency fund. Now, the thing is that if you really think about it, because a perfect example, my father, excellent credit, right? COVID, he was one of the people that was on an induced coma for 111 days. He had his emergency fund, but at the same time, he had to stop working, right? He had to retire early. So what were things that financially, his health caused also his ability to make financial income, had to force him to retire early, which had to allow him to kind of shift based off of unexpected circumstances. So he had specific tools into place where he had to make sure that he covered himself in the event something like this would happen, right? That's why I always say that it's important for us to educate ourselves as Latinos and understanding the importance of healthcare, the importance of life insurance, the importance of real estate owning that as a hard asset, and how all of those different things, even how you title certain things, right? So what's a trust? Trusts aren't discussed, and and a lot of people don't know there's different types of trusts, right? And how you can leverage it, and what's the pros and cons to it. So
all such great information, really.
All
really.
of that.
Thank you. You've dropped some serious golden nuggets today. I mean, if you guys did not have your notepad out, you're going to want to watch this episode again, streamed, so you can watch it again, take some notes, and really implement it. And I mean, we could keep going here, guys. This is such a great topic with so much information to be delivered. But unfortunately, our show is not 5 hours long. But you do have, Jocrease, can you please share your information, so if anybody wants to reach out and have a one-on-one, they can do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me again, guys. My Instagram is at JOCRYS, Jocrease. There you'll have a link where you can set up a meeting, a 30-minute meeting or a call, and or you could contact me directly at 516-787-0706 so that we can further discuss whatever is tailored to you.
Perfect. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take one last break, and then we're going to close it out. So we'll see you in a few minutes. DJ, play some music.
No te pongas bruto. Latino Mixx. Dale play a tu bocina.
Dímelo mi mundo, and welcome back to Boss It Up Media. We are just about wrapping up our episode. This was a wealth of knowledge from Jo Cris.
So good.
You have to have multiple advisors, and this is an advisor that you should have and must have for your business. Once again, my name is Ralph Rondon. My IG is Ralph Holmes NYC.
I'm Dawn Acevedo. You can find me at Dawn the Closer on IG.
I'm Lisa G in the city, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show again. You have been amazing with all those gems that you dropped. Seriously.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Shout out, thank you, Jo Cris. Exodus Financial, that was awesome. I learned a lot. I'm glad this is on demand because we're going to replay it.
Definitely.
And you can reach me at sydneyrodriguez.com.
I just want to give a special shout out again to our sponsor. We couldn't do this without you, Kaplan, DiGiappani, and Faria, real estate attorneys. Please, if you need one, reach out. And, you know, we've talked about building a team, and that's what we're doing. So it's so important when you're starting out, or even if you're in your business for years, make sure you have a strong team. Make sure you have that financial analyst, that financial planner, that good attorney, that good accountant. Build your team, interview them, ask the hard questions, make sure that they're working for you and helping you plan accordingly. So we hope you got value in this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. We got a lot of information. We cannot wait to see you next time. Make sure you
Cannot
tune
wait.
in and follow everybody.
Yes, and
Take care.
once
Thank you for
again,
checking us
follow our IG, Boss It Up Media, and also our YouTube channel, Boss It Up Media. We will see you on the next episode, and can't wait to speak to another guest speaker, and also us. You know,
Yeah.
we talk so much. We're so great entrepreneurs. So
We're pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. So we will catch you on the next one.